Graham was already half asleep on the couch, his 6-year-old daughter tucked against his side, when the phone rang loud, sharp, and unforgiving in the silence of their tiny apartment. He groaned and reached for it, careful not to wake Gracie. Her little hand was still wrapped around his thumb, even in sleep. He glanced at the time. "Who calls at 11:30 on a Tuesday?" he muttered, rubbing his face as he answered. "Hello." There was a pause on the other end, then a crisp female voice. "Is this Graham Weller?" His brows pulled together. "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Fallon Vale, CEO of Vale and Orion." He blinked, sitting up straighter. Okay." He glanced down at Gracie, confused and wary. "Is this a prank?" "No, I found your resume through the agency." "You applied for the night shift logistics position." "Right, he had. 2 weeks ago, it had felt like tossing a rock into the ocean." "I did," he said cautiously, "but I didn't expect a call this late." "I work odd hours. Are you available to meet tomorrow morning?" He wanted to say yes. He needed the job, but his morning was already booked: solid school drop-off, then a side gig fixing a busted sink for a neighbor. "Can we do afternoon?" There was another pause. "I'll make it work. 1 o'clock, our Manhattan office." "Ask for me at the front." She hung up before he could say anything else. Graham stared at the phone like it had just grown teeth. He looked down at Gracie again. "Well, Gracie girl," he whispered, brushing her hair from her face, "maybe this is what we've been waiting for." Vale and Orion's building was made of glass and steel and looked like it didn't belong in the same universe as their rundown neighborhood in Queens. Graham adjusted his shirt, one of only 2 he owned that didn't have a stain or fading, and tried not to feel like he was walking into a spaceship. The receptionist gave him a once-over when he asked for Fallon. "You're early," she said, surprised. "I figured better than late." She nodded and picked up the phone, murmuring something. Then, "She'll be down in a minute." He waited, fidgeting with the cuffs of his sleeves, when the elevator dinged and a woman stepped out. Graham's breath caught. She was tall, in a deep navy suit and sharp heels. Her hair was dark, sleek, and tied back in a low bun, but it was her eyes that froze him, cool, piercing, like she could see right through him. "Mr. Weller?" she asked, her voice even but her gaze curious. "Yeah." He stood awkwardly. Hi, I prefer Fallon." She extended a hand. "Come up." He followed her into the elevator, stunned by the silence between them. She didn't speak until they reached the top floor, and even then it wasn't small talk. "I read your resume." "You didn't finish college. I had to drop out when my wife got sick," he said quickly. "She passed a few years ago. It's just been me and my daughter since." Fallon paused in front of her office door, her voice softened just barely. "I'm sorry." "Thanks." She opened the door and motioned for him to sit. Her office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows, a marble desk, and a view of the city that made him feel like he was in a movie. She sat across from him, folding her hands. "You've worked a lot of odd jobs." "Yeah." "I take what I can get. I've been doing maintenance, nights at a delivery warehouse, and plumbing on weekends." "You do what you have to." He met her eyes, surprised by the hint of understanding in her voice. "Exactly." She leaned back. "I need someone reliable. Someone who doesn't quit when it gets hard. This job isn't glamorous. It's inventory coordination, scheduling, and some overnight calls. It pays well, but it's demanding." "I can do demanding," he said without hesitation. "I'll show up. I'll learn whatever I have to." She studied him for a long moment, then she stood. "Come with me." He followed her down a hall, past sleek conference rooms and hushed assistants. She pushed open a door to a smaller office tucked in the corner. "This is yours if you want it." "I'll have IT set it up by tomorrow. You start at 9, Graham stared. "Wait, seriously?" Fallon nodded once. "I don't waste time." He ran a hand through his hair, dazed. "Thank you." "Thank you so much." She gave him a half smile, just enough to make him wonder what she looked like when she really smiled. "Don't thank me yet. Let's see how you handle your first week." Graham didn't expect her to keep checking in, but she did. Sometimes it was just a quick knock on his door. Sometimes she asked how Gracie was doing. Once, she even sent down a coffee with almond milk because she remembered he said he didn't do dairy. He told himself not to read into it. But one night, when he was working late and the building was nearly empty, Fallon appeared in his doorway again. "You eat yet?" she asked. He blinked. "Not really." She held up 2 takeout bags. "Come on, I ordered too much." They sat in the break room, which felt less like a break room and more like a high-end cafe. Graham tried not to wolf his food down, but she noticed. "You're not used to eating like this, huh?" she asked, amused. He shrugged. "Not since. Well, not in a while." Fallon looked down at her food. "You remind me of my dad." That surprised him. "Yeah, he raised me alone after my mom left. He worked 3 jobs. Never missed a dance recital." Graham smiled softly. "Sounds like a good man." He was. They were quiet for a moment, just eating. Then Fallon asked, "Do you want more than this job?" He looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what are you working toward? What do you want that you haven't let yourself say out loud?" Graham exhaled. "I want stability. A real home, not just for me, for Gracie. I want her to have a room with her name on the door. I want to be able to take a day off without panicking." Fallon was quiet again. Then softly, "You deserve that." He looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, she wasn't just the CEO, she was a woman who saw through him, and he didn't know why, but something in his chest pulled toward her. She stood too quickly. "Anyway, I should get back." "Fallon," she paused. He stood too. "Thanks for the food and everything." She gave him a look that made his stomach twist. "Don't make me regret it." Then she walked away, heels echoing down the hall. Graham leaned against the counter, heart thudding. He was in way more trouble than he thought. Graham didn't see Fallon for the next 3 days, but she was everywhere. Her name buzzed across interdepartmental memos. Her initials signed off on every change in protocol. Her voice echoed faintly from the conference room at the end of the hall, clipped and decisive, during tense meetings with people in tailored suits who never glanced his way. He focused on the work, tracking shipments, updating schedules, troubleshooting supply delays, but he couldn't shake the memory of that break room meal, of her asking what he wanted in life like she actually cared about the answer. Every time he passed her office, a part of him wondered if she'd call him in again just to talk. She didn't. Instead, on Friday afternoon, he was summoned. Bethany, Fallon's assistant, appeared at his door without knocking. "She wants 10 minutes now," he blinked. "Is something wrong?" Bethany didn't answer. She just turned and walked. Fallon stood by the window when he entered, her back to the room, arms crossed loosely. She didn't look over. "Close the door." He did, trying not to feel like a kid summoned to the principal's office. "I'm taking you out of inventory rotation," she said without preamble. His stomach dropped. "Wait, what? Did I do something wrong?" She turned then, her face unreadable. "No, you've done everything right, that's the problem." He stared at her, confused. She crossed to her desk and slid a folder toward him. "I'm moving you to operations oversight. It's a promotion, more responsibility, more pay, and a flexible schedule." He didn't touch the folder. "Why me? You're efficient. You don't waste time. You catch things others miss. You don't talk just to hear yourself think." He exhaled slowly. "I thought you said you don't waste time. Sounds like you're giving me a desk to keep me out of the way." Fallon's gaze sharpened. "That's not how I work." "Then what is this?" She walked around the desk, standing directly in front of him. "It's me recognizing potential before someone else does." He held her stare, wondering if she knew how much that meant. Or maybe she did. Maybe that's why she looked away first. "I can't guarantee how long I'll be in this position," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" "There's a board vote coming up. Some want new leadership. They're circling." He frowned. "Why tell me that?" "Because if I go," she said, "I want to know I left smart choices in place." There was something raw there for a second, something unguarded, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He nodded slowly. "Then I'll make sure you don't regret it." She stepped back, the moment sealed off again. "You start Monday, and Graham," he turned at the door. "I've arranged for a driver to take you home today. You've been staying late. Let someone else do the driving." He wanted to argue, but something in her tone warned him not to. The car was sleek, black, and smelled faintly of leather and citrus. The driver wore a cap and didn't speak unless spoken to. When they pulled up to his building, Graham leaned forward. "How much is she paying you?" The driver cracked the first smile of the day. "Enough to keep secrets." Gracie was coloring on the floor when he walked in. Mrs. Morneau from next door looked up from the couch. She was an angel as usual. He handed her a few bills from his wallet. "Thank you." "I owe you dinner." "You owe me nothing. She's a joy." The older woman looked at him closely. "You look different." "Do I?" She nodded. "Like someone opened a window in a room you didn't know was locked." After she left, he crouched beside Gracie. Guess what? I got a new job title. She looked up, her curls falling into her eyes. Is it superhero? He laughed, tugging her into a hug. Almost. That night, after brushing her teeth and reading 2 books, Gracie was out cold. Graham sat by the window, watching the street lights flicker on. He didn't know what Fallon was doing right now. Probably something important, probably not thinking about him, but when his phone buzzed, his chest tightened. It was a number he didn't recognize. He hesitated, then answered. Did you get home safe? Fallon's voice, low and even. I did. Thanks for the ride. She didn't say anything for a second. Then, there's a charity event next Friday. It's for a children's hospital I work with, so don't say no. He blinked. Are you inviting me? I'm not asking the guy from logistics. I'm asking the man who talked about giving his daughter a home with her name on the door. Graham's throat tightened. I don't have anything to wear to that kind of event. I already sent something. It'll arrive tomorrow, don't argue. She hung up. When he opened the door the next morning, a box waited for him. Inside was a full suit tailored elegant and nothing like the thrift store jackets he was used to. Gracie tugged at the sleeve. Are you going to be a prince, Daddy? He looked down at her. No, baby. But I think I might be going to the ball. Friday arrived faster than he expected. The event was held at an art museum closed to the public for the night. Chandeliers shimmered above marble floors and string music floated through the air. He stepped inside, already regretting it. Everyone looked like they were born in tuxedos and diamonds. And then he saw her. Fallon stood under a skylight, her dress a deep silver that caught the light like water. She was speaking to a donor, but when she caught sight of Graham, her eyes lingered. When she approached, he braced himself for the usual formality. Instead, she touched his hand lightly. You clean up well, she said. I feel like I walked onto a different planet. You belong here. Her voice was quiet but firm. Don't forget that. He tried to find something clever to say, but then the music shifted and the lights dimmed slightly. Dance with me, she said. He hesitated. I haven't danced since high school. Good. Then you won't try to impress me. She led him onto the floor, and suddenly her hand was in his, her other on his shoulder, and they were moving not smoothly, but together. You always this bossy? He asked. Only with people who don't realize their worth. He looked at her, really looked, and something in his chest cracked open. I think I'll listen to you more often. She smiled, and this time it wasn't polite or distant, it was real, and it undid him. Graham adjusted the cuffs of his dress shirt as he stepped out of the elevator Monday morning. The memory of Fallon's hand in his still fresh enough to make him question if it had even happened. He'd replayed that dance more than once over the weekend, her steady gaze, the quiet way she'd said he belonged. But just as quickly, he reminded himself that she'd spoken those words at a charity gala, not over a cup of coffee in his kitchen. This was work, and Fallon Vale didn't blur lines. He passed the reception area and made his way to his new office, smaller than hers but still far more than he'd ever had. A sleek laptop sat already connected to dual monitors, and a fresh stack of files waited beside it. As he logged in, a calendar invite popped up from Fallon's assistant. Weekly operations sync, 11 sharp, her office. He leaned back in the chair. The last time he'd been in that office, she'd offered him the promotion. Somehow, he doubted this meeting would be so generous. At precisely 11, he knocked once and stepped in. Fallon stood at the far end of the room, flipping through a folder, her blazer draped over the back of her chair. Close the door. He did. I need your eyes on something, she said, sliding a document across the table. There's a shipment discrepancy between our Chicago and LA branches. The numbers don't line up. He scanned the sheet. The problem's not in LA, it's the Chicago timestamp. It's off by 12 hours, which means the delivery was logged before the truck left the dock. Fallon looked up. You spotted that in under 30 seconds. I used to drive trucks when I was 20. Time zones matter when you're trying to sleep on the road. She leaned her hip against the edge of the desk. You have a habit of being overlooked, but you're not invisible to me. He folded the paper. Is that a compliment or a warning? It's a fact. He waited, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she crossed to the window and looked out over the skyline, her expression unreadable. They want to bring in an external consultant to audit the supply chain, she said. Why? You've got a team that knows the system. Because the board likes outside opinions. They think it keeps things objective, and you don't agree. I think it's a polite way of saying they want someone to blame if they decide to restructure. Graham stepped closer. Are they pushing you out? Her voice dropped. They haven't decided yet, but if they do, I won't get a vote in that room. You built this company, he said, sharper than he intended. They'd be idiots to cut you out. She turned to him then, her jaw tight. This company was my father's. I inherited it. I didn't build it, I salvaged what was left after his stroke, and that makes some people very uncomfortable. He hesitated, then asked, What does that mean for me? It means you may report to someone else next month. Someone who doesn't care that you're raising a daughter on your own. Someone who won't look past your resume. He crossed his arms. Then why promote me at all? Because I believe in placing bets on people who have lived life, she said. Not just those who have studied it. He hadn't expected her to say that. He also hadn't expected the way his chest tightened at the quiet intensity in her voice. She walked back to her desk. There's a dinner Thursday, not a gala, just a corporate mixer. I want you there. I don't mix well. You don't have to talk, just listen, watch the room, see who's circling. You want me to spy, I want you to observe. You've got instincts I trust, he nodded slowly. All right. I'll be there. As he turned to leave, she added, and Graham, he looked over his shoulder. Don't let anyone treat you like you're lucky to be here. You earned your place. He left her office with his pulse pounding. That night, after putting Gracie to bed, he sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the dinner invite. It was printed on heavy cardstock with embossed lettering. These weren't people who clipped coupons. He was still staring at it when the phone rang. Hey, came a familiar voice. You sound like you're 100 miles away. It was Lex, an old friend from the neighborhood who now did security at an event venue downtown. Sorry, just thinking. You all right? Graham hesitated. I've got a new boss who thinks I'm worth more than I do. Lex chuckled. So she's either brilliant or crazy. Maybe both. Let me guess, tight suits, sharper words, Graham laughed. You have no idea. Well, if she's smart enough to see something in you, maybe it's time you start seeing it too. He hung up a few minutes later, but the words lingered. By Thursday, he was in a charcoal suit Fallon's office had sent over, standing by a table of fig-glazed canapés pretending to understand half the conversations around him. Fallon arrived late, not fashionably, strategically. She swept into the room with the kind of presence that turned heads without needing to speak. She made her way to him, her voice low. See the man by the wine bar? That's Harlan Page. He's pushing the board to vote me out. Graham glanced over. The man looked like someone who'd never carried his own luggage. What do you want me to do? Nothing yet. Just pay attention. He's charming until he's not. A few minutes later, Fallon was pulled into a conversation across the room. Graham watched Page carefully. The man laughed too loudly and touched people's arms when he spoke. But when Fallon passed by him, his eyes narrowed ever so slightly. After an hour, Page approached. You're new, he said to Graham, swirling a glass of wine. Graham Weller. Operations. Hired by Fallon, I assume. I work under her. Of course you do, Page said with a dry smile. She's always had a soft spot for underdogs. Something in Graham's jaw shifted. She's also the reason this company didn't collapse 3 years ago. Page raised an eyebrow, amused. Loyalty, that's rare. She earns it. Page's smile thinned. We'll see how long that lasts. He walked off, leaving Graham with a sour taste in his mouth. After the event, Fallon stepped into the car next to him, her heels already kicked off. Well, he's a snake, Graham said. But he's careful, keeps his teeth hidden. You noticed that too. He said something about your soft spot for underdogs. She looked out the window. That man once told me I'd be better suited to interior design. Graham's hands tightened in his lap. He's not going to win. She looked at him, tired but resolute. He might. And in that moment, Graham made a silent decision he didn't say out loud. If she was going to fall, he'd be damned if she did it alone. The storm hit just after midnight. Wind slashed against the windows of Graham's apartment, rain coming down in sheets so thick it blurred the streetlights. He stood barefoot in the kitchen, staring at the cracked tile under his feet, his phone pressed to his ear. I'm coming to get you, Fallon said, her voice tight through the static. The board's moving the vote up. Harlan's pushing it through tomorrow morning. He dragged a hand down his face. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need you there. I'm not on the board. I don't get a say. You get something better, she said. You get the truth, and right now that might be the only thing that changes their minds. He looked toward Gracie's room. She was fast asleep, curled up with her stuffed rabbit, the sound machine humming low. I can't leave her alone. I know, that's why I'm downstairs. He stepped to the window. Her car idled at the curb, headlights cutting through the downpour. He didn't ask how she got there so fast. He just grabbed his coat and gently woke Mrs. Morneau, who had agreed to stay over if anything came up. By the time he climbed into the passenger seat, Fallon's hair was damp from the rain, her hands tight around the wheel. They're meeting at 6, she said, in the upper conference room. It's a closed-door session, but I convinced one of the neutral votes to let you speak. He glanced at her. Why me? Because you don't owe anyone, she said, and they know that. They didn't speak again until they reached the building. The storm hadn't let up. Thunder rolled across the sky as they stepped into the private elevator. Fallon's heels echoed on the marble floor of the top level, her stride unbroken, even in the silence. Inside the conference room, a long glass table stretched beneath recessed lighting. 12 board members sat in tailored suits, their faces unreadable. Fallon stood at the head, calm but alert. I've asked Mr. Weller to say a few words, she said. Harlan Page leaned back, one brow raised. Is this necessary? It's already been approved, Fallon said, her tone final. Graham stepped forward, his palms slightly damp. He didn't belong in rooms like this, but she did, and she'd brought him here. I know I'm not what you expect, he began, his voice steady. I don't have a degree from Wharton. I've never held a board seat. I'm a single father who took a job here to keep food on the table, but in the weeks I've been working under Fallon Vale, I've seen things that numbers don't show. He looked around the table, meeting the eyes that would decide her future. She doesn't just manage a company, she sees people. She gives chances no one else would. She listens. She leads without making you feel small, and that makes people work harder than fear ever could. A woman near the end of the table blinked slowly, her pen stilled. I've worked under bosses who didn't know my name, he continued. Fallon knew mine before I stepped through the door. She doesn't lead with ego, she leads with purpose. And if you take that away, you're not just losing a CEO, you're losing the reason people still believe this company matters. He stepped back. For a moment, the room was silent. Then someone cleared their throat, a different board member, older, with silver hair and lined hands. I move to delay the vote until we've reviewed the new quarterly projections. Another voice joined. Seconded. Harlan Page's expression tightened, but he said nothing. Fallon's shoulders didn't move, but Graham could see the shift in her eyes. A quiet exhale behind them. A war still raging, but a battle, for now, held. They left the building just as dawn broke over the skyline, the storm finally giving way to a soft, gray light. She didn't speak until they were back in the car. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to come to Queens in a hurricane, he said. She hesitated, then glanced at him. I wanted to. He looked at her. I want things too. She didn't look away. Say it. I want to be part of your life, not just the office, not just the job. You. She was quiet. Then, slowly, I thought I could keep it professional. I thought I could draw a line. I don't want a line between us, he said. I want a door, and what's on the other side, something real. They sat in the quiet hum of the car, the city slowly waking around them. I've never let anyone in, she whispered. Not like this. That's okay, he said. I'm not asking to break in. I'm asking you to open it. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then she reached across the console, her fingers threading through his. Weeks passed. The board delayed the vote again, then quietly withdrew it. Fallon stayed in power, but her leadership shifted. She delegated more. She smiled, not just for photos. And some nights she showed up at Graham's place with takeout and a bottle of wine, her heels kicked off before she even crossed the threshold. Gracie adored her. They planted a tiny herb garden on the fire escape, watched old cartoons together on Sunday mornings. Graham caught Fallon humming once in the kitchen, barefoot, flipping pancakes. He didn't say anything. He just watched her, his heart full. One Friday, she took them both to a townhouse uptown. Gracie ran ahead to the second floor, squealing as she found a room painted pale yellow with her name on the door in wooden letters. Graham turned to Fallon, stunned. What is this? Our new home, she said, his throat tightened. You bought this. No, she said. We did. He looked at her, everything in him opening wide. I love you, he said. I know, she whispered. I've known for a while. She stepped closer, her hand against his cheek. And I love you too. The kiss came soft and slow, everything spoken finally wrapped in silence. And in that moment, everything made sense. The late-night call. The unexpected chance. The woman who dialed his heart when he'd least expected it, and never let go. The first time Fallon took a day off, it rained. Not a torrential, city-swallowing storm like the night of the board vote, just a steady, soft drizzle that made everything smell like wet stone and green. Graham stood by the window of their new townhouse, watching Gracie jump from puddle to puddle in her yellow boots, her laughter rising with each splash. Fallon was curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath her, a hardcover book resting on her knees. She wasn't reading it. Her gaze lingered on the girl outside, her face unguarded in a way Graham had never seen during all those months at Vale and Orion. He crossed the room and sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. You're not thinking about work, he said. I'm trying not to, she admitted. But it's strange. What is? Letting myself be still. He rested his arm along the back of the couch. You don't have to earn rest, Fallon. I was raised to believe you did. She closed the book and looked at him. I used to think success meant control. That if I could manage every variable, nothing could fall apart. And now I know the most important things are the ones I never planned for. Gracie came barreling inside moments later, dripping rainwater all over the foyer. Daddy, there's a snail on the porch, she beamed. He grabbed a towel from the bench and knelt to wipe her hands. Did you name it, Shelby? Fallon laughed, just once, but it was the kind of laugh that cracked something open in the air. It was new, he hadn't heard it before. It wasn't careful, it wasn't polite, it was joy, raw and unfiltered. That night, while Gracie slept upstairs with her nightlight casting little stars across the ceiling, Fallon stood on the back porch barefoot, holding a glass of red wine. Graham stepped behind her, arms sliding around her waist. She's already asked me twice if you're staying forever, he murmured against her shoulder. Fallon leaned back into him. And what did you say? That I hoped so, but I'd let you answer her. She turned, her eyes steady. You and Gracie, you're mine now, she said simply. I'm not going anywhere. Graham didn't answer with words. He kissed her slow and deep, the kind of kiss that didn't need promises because it already held them. Weeks passed. Then months. Fallon didn't step away from Vale and Orion, but she changed how she led. She brought in fresh voices, built a mentorship program, and launched a family support initiative. Graham took over a new Division 1 focused on logistics innovation. He still came home smelling like paper and ink, but now his nights ended with home-cooked meals and a child's sleepy goodnight kiss. One afternoon in late spring, Fallon walked into his office holding a folded piece of paper. I need you to read something, she said. He took it, brow furrowing. What is it? My resignation letter. He stood abruptly. You're leaving? Not yet, she said. But soon. She waited as he read the letter, his pulse ticking upward. I'm not being pushed out, she said. I'm choosing this. I've done what I needed to do. I saved the company. I proved myself, and now I want something different. He folded the letter and handed it back. What do you want? She looked at him with a smile that reached all the way through him. Time. They married in July, not in a cathedral or a ballroom, but in a garden behind their townhouse. The ceremony was small, just 30 people, every one of them someone who mattered. Gracie wore a crown of daisies and walked Fallon down the path, holding her hand like she was guiding something precious. Fallon wore ivory, Graham wore navy. They said their vows under the shade of a willow tree, the leaves swaying gently in the breeze. I used to think strength meant doing everything alone, Fallon said, her voice thick with emotion. But you showed me that love is not weakness. It's the strongest thing I've ever known. Graham took her hands. I didn't know what home meant until I saw you standing at my door. You didn't just open a life for me, you built one with me. Gracie handed them the rings. Fallon knelt to kiss her cheek, eyes brimming. Afterward, they danced barefoot on the grass while their friends clapped and cheered. There was no orchestra, no chandeliers. Just fairy lights strung from tree to tree and the sound of laughter echoing into the summer night. Later, after the last of the guests had gone and Gracie was tucked into bed with cake still on her chin, Fallon pulled Graham onto the porch. You remember what I asked you the first night you stayed late at the office, she said. He thought for a moment. You asked what I wanted that I hadn't let myself say out loud. She nodded. So tell me now, what do you want? He cupped her face in his hands. This. Every day, she kissed him, slow and certain. Then take it, she whispered, because it's yours. They stood there, wrapped in each other, the world quiet around them, and for the first time in both their lives, there was nothing left to chase, no battles left to fight, just love, only love.